We are here at the second annual Women at Work conference, this time in Singapore. This year, we invited experts from all over the world to come and share their rigorous research findings on how to actually develop gender balance in organizations that are male-dominated and also in leadership positions and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Let me start with sharing the good news. Many organizations are addressing the issue of gender diversity in a more constructive way than ever before. At the same time, we see kind of still very partial approaches to getting more mileage out of gender diversity.
Yeah, exactly. I think when we talk about changing the situation for women in work, there's a couple of different ways that we can focus on that. We can talk about increasing the representation of women in a workplace, which is an important thing to consider. But we can also talk about sort of how do we change the culture in the organization? How do we change the norms by which people interact with one another and function? Those can be equally important. Women in particular tell us that they become less aware of gender at work when they're working for organizations that have more gender-inclusive policies and practices in place, suggesting that those norms of inclusion are important for trickling down in the way in which men and women are interacting with one another, and that actually is more predictive than whether or not women are well represented in the organization.
Yeah, so my research would suggest that some of the programs and policies that organizations are using that are well-intentioned to try to embrace differences and really celebrate diversity can actually lead to more backlash against women. Because what's happening is when you say, hey, we should embrace gender differences, you're actually reifying some of the gender role stereotypes where women are needed to be seen as warm, kind, and communal. And so by embracing diversity or celebrating differences, actually what happens is you pigeonhole women into those roles. And when they do behave agentically or like leaders, people punish them for that.
Typically, workplace environments are seen as very masculine spaces where women are supposed to de-emphasize their roles as mothers. And in fact, women often experience penalty as a result of exposing that they have children or talking about their family lives. But our research shows that if you encourage men to talk about their families, then in fact that normalizes and begins to make it more important for men and women to care for families.
If the leadership thinks about these people as potentially having the skills that can really lead change in organizations, which I believe in, then they really have to get to know them. They can't make assumptions about them. They can't kind of stereotype them. They really do have to get to know them and make sure that the bosses that they're working with and the HR people listen beyond the stereotypes, beyond assumptions. So if you have a woman from Korea in your office, don't just assume certain things. Listen to her. Listen to what her work experience has been like. Absolutely necessary.
So I do research on, or I have a project now on motivation, and actually find that although people think that men and women have very different motivations, so what motivates them, how much money motivates them, I find that men and women self-report having no difference in what motivates them. I think the message that I really have from this research and from other research as well is that gender differences are often overblown. Whether they're even real at all, they're usually overblown, and often they're not even real at all. There is no gender difference at all.
Unilever has a policy that for every position, the manager looking to fill that position is supposed to go find a balance, gender balance in terms of number of people applying. So it puts the burden on you to go make sure that your search processes are not biased towards one gender, but after that, let the best candidate win.
So we all know that the gender wage gap is pernicious, that women make anywhere from 60 to 80% of what men make. What we do is look at a set of hundreds and hundreds of MBA students that are pursuing jobs across a variety of industries. And what we find is that those that do an internship first see a much smaller gender wage gap. By women having an opportunity to get into organizations and demonstrate their skills and abilities, organizations update their expectations for how good women are going to be relative to men as leaders. And so what that internship does is give them a chance to go in and demonstrate their leadership qualities and how well they can perform in the organization in an effective way.
So today we've talked about lots of complex issues. We've talked about the systemic web of challenges, focusing on the individual processes that can undermine equality, as well as the systemic processes that we cannot ignore if we really want to make change. Now, this might sound potentially overwhelming or disempowering at first, but the truth is that thinking about things in these ways can be extremely empowering. And this is because there are multiple points of intervention at which we can act, both as individual leaders and also at organizational levels.